All right. Happy Friday, everybody. We're back at the whiteboard. We are still high off of an Eagles Super Bowl. But today we're going to talk about lies, damn lies, and statistics, specifically how that pertains to Meta and what it could be costing you. So I want to start this out by saying there are two things that can be true at the same time. Number one, Meta is better at picking ads than you are. That hurts, but it's true. Meta has access to more data. It has access to more information in terms of advertisers and advertiser performance. It has access to more user-specific data. And candidly, it's better at modeling than you are, and it's more disciplined than you are. It's true of me, it's true of you, it's true of everybody. Meta is better at picking ads than you. The second thing that can be true is that if you and Meta work together, you can make better decisions than if Meta works alone. So let me explain this first by setting the scene with some of our client data, and then show you how this actually translates into the real world. So, you know, if you've read my newsletter, that we frequently categorize Meta ads as hits or busts, right? Something I've written about multiple times. And generally speaking, we look at a hit as 25 times the CPA in spend over a month, 25 or more conversion actions in that month, whether that be a purchase, a lead, who cares, and the cost per conversion being at or below your target. Simple rules for a hit. And what we've found is, generally speaking, that about 10% of ads in an ambitious scenario are actually hits. The remaining 90% are busts. And if you look at any Facebook advertiser who has a serious volume of creative and you chart these metrics for their ads, you'll probably observe a similar pattern. Most ads are busts. In fact, Meta is really good at picking out busts. It's about 70% to 90% accurate in picking busts. So what does that mean? Well, I've created a diagram, and as we go through this, I'm going to explain two concepts, right? Number one, false negatives. Number two, false positives. These are terms that we've discussed during the last 5 years as a result of a global pandemic, but I don't think people fully understand how they work. So we are going to assume, for the sake of this exercise, that Meta's ad prediction accuracy is 80%, 80. Well, what does that mean? Well, out of 100 ads, you can see I've got 100 squares here. There should be a total, based on a 10% hit rate, of 10 hits. Well, Meta correctly predicts 8 of those hits. Misses 2. That's those blue circles right here, the O's. These are actual hits that are not regarded as hits. Okay, simple enough, right? Then we have the actual busts. Ads that are not good, they are not hits, that Meta accurately predicts as hits. Well, that's 80% of 90 total, or 72. And you can count them. I drew 72 X's on this board for you guys. 72 ads are busts. They're categorized correctly as busts. Go team. Then there is this one, the error that everyone forgets about, the false positive. This is a bust ad that is incorrectly categorized as a hit. This occurs in 18% of ads, right? This is 0.2 times 90 equals 18, right? 20% accuracy, 20% hit miss rate. There you go. So what you have in your ad account, if you want to summarize this whole table right here, are 4 classes of ads in your ad account. You have hits that are accurately categorized as hits. There are supposedly 10 hits. You have 8, so you're 2 short. Basically, there are 2 ads that you should be running that you're not. You have hits that are categorized as, you have busts that are categorized as hits. These purple Z's down here, all 18 of them. There should be none, because obviously in a perfect world, you would only run your hits. You would never run your busts. But here they are. So there's 18 of those that are live in your account right now. You have your busts that are actually hits. That's these 2 blue circles here. There's 2 of those. And then you've got your X's, your busts, that are correctly categorized as such. There should be 90. Meta identifies 72, which means there are 18 ads running in your account out of this 100 that shouldn't be running, that are not your best ads, that are not going to produce that same kind of result that you want. Well, you might be thinking, how is this even possible, right? Meta is 80% accurate. It's true. It's maybe even 90%. And yet, roughly 4 out of every 13 ads in your account are legitimate hits, and the remaining 9 out of 13, it's a pretty high percentage. If you're doing the math, it's almost 70-something, almost 70%, are busts, which means that pausing an ad at random that's live in your Meta account likely has a positive expected value for you. That feels surprising, right? Pausing an ad that's getting spend could actually be profitable. Actually is more likely to be profitable than not, given these assumptions. And obviously, ad performance is a continuum. You can have dramatic outperformers and you can have really crappy performers. But what the next concept we have to manage here and understand is not just the rate of errors, because this in and of itself might not be a problem. What could be a problem is if the error cost gets out of control. So let me give you an example of error cost as we keep moving over here. Actually, I'm going to switch over here. So if we assume that a hit has a cost per conversion, a cost per action of $100 per, and a bust, right, being by virtue of being a worse ad, a lower performer, less engaging, less enticing, less compelling, whatever, has a CPA of 150. So it's 50% higher. And that's charitable. If you look at your Meta account, you probably see some really wide swaths. Like we might see a skew of a hit ad having a conversion at 80 and a bust at 350, right? That's not uncommon. But we're going to use a conservative scenario here, just $50 more. Well, the delta here is $50. We know that. And we're going to assume that every ad that is running, I mark those as an R versus not running, gets $2,500 in spend per month. So I've got a total of 26 live ads, right? That's comprised of 8 legitimate hits and 18 busts. 26 times 2,500, right? I can calculate my error cost. 18 times 2,500 over 100 times 50, right? So that gives me an error cost of about $22,500 on a total spend of about $65,000. So essentially, upwards of 33% of my budget is being wasted. And the reason we use this formula here is we've got 18 ads, each spending $2,500 a month, that should be able to convert at 100, but they have to convert at 150, right? So that's what you should be getting versus what you're actually, the incremental cost that you're paying. So this means that there are 2 factors in play here. When you think about Meta choosing the right ads, the questions are, number one, what's the difference in performance between a hit and a bust? What is the difference in performance between your best ads and your worst ads? And the bigger that gap is, the more punishing this math becomes. Number 2, how aggressive does Meta reevaluate ads? If Meta's letting ads run for days or weeks on end that are actually busts and have much higher sustained CPAs, the error cost gets higher and higher and higher. If Meta is pretty aggressive at shutting down ads that aren't performing, well, then this math gets a little bit more palatable for you. But the third piece of this, right, the part that we haven't talked about, so far we've only talked about what Meta does. Well, the question is, well, what can you do? And there are 4 things you can do as an advertiser to help Meta make better decisions. And the same thing is true for YouTube, the same thing is true for Pinterest, the same thing is true for Twitter, right? It's the same math. It's the same reality. In fact, I would say that those smaller platforms are less good at this. So their error rate is higher. That makes, again, this math more compelling for you. Number 1, introduce new creative more frequently. The more new creative you're putting into the account, the more we are able to keep selecting hits and the more some of these false positives get churned out as Meta continually reevaluates ad performance relative to one another. Number 2, add in outside of view data. So what do I mean by that? I mean, Meta has access to some data on your website via the pixel. Meta has access to some data about your business via your CRM or your conversions API, but it doesn't have access to all of it. Meta does not get to talk to your sales team. Meta does not get to talk to your customer success or product teams. Meta does not get to talk to your customers and ask about what made them buy. Which ad did they find compelling? Why did they like the ad? Which ad did they not like? Which messaging resonated with them? What problem were they trying to solve? All of these audience insights questions and audience research questions that you can ask and start to summarize and use that to guide some of your feedback or your pausing decisions helps Meta. The third thing is you can add more data in the view, right? Meta has introduced very smartly a Google Analytics 4 integration. If you use third-party attribution, which I think is a terrible life choice, but if you have decided to make that bad life choice, at least make it a little better by connecting your third-party attribution tool into your Meta ads, so Meta can at least bring that data into its own view and start to optimize off of it. And then number 4, you can give Meta additional audience insights and use that for your targeting, basically restricting down your audience targetings, enhancing your audience or your interest stacks, better refining your lookalikes, etc. And you can even add even more outside of view data like enhanced conversions, right? Posting back conversion values, etc. The point here is that Meta is smarter when you help it than when Meta is left to its own devices. Because even though it is phenomenally accurate, as you can see, even an 80% accuracy rate can be incredibly expensive for a relatively small advertiser. $65,000 a month is roughly $2,000 a day. It is not a lot in the Meta world. It is a lot to a lot of people, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but in the context of Meta advertisers who may spend 100, 200, 300, a million, 2, 4, 5 million a month, $65,000 is not a lot of money. So if the error is this big on this sum, imagine how big it is if you 10x this or 100x this, right? This is a big reason why I think we need more people who are managing Meta and Google, et cetera, to be proactive and to help the machines do their jobs better. It's not because I think machines are bad. They're not. They're incredibly good at figuring out. As you can see, it's pretty good. But you can take it from good to great, and pretty good is usually not good enough. So as you think about this, look at your ad accounts. Actually go in there. Don't just blindly trust Meta. Go in there and say, you know what? Are there ads that might be busts that are still serving? I can go ahead and pause those and save myself money. Go look at the differences in your CPAs between your running ads and see how big the delta is. And start to do some of this math for your own agents, for your client or your agency, and say, well, what's the potential waste here? Should we keep running this ad? I'm generally not a fan of pausing ads, but if ads aren't performing and Meta's not properly evaluating them over a long period of time, then you have to intervene. So the more you do that, the better off you'll be. Talk to you next week.